Okay, I think it's time. Let's get rolling. Welcome, everyone. My name is Emiko Morita. I'm the Executive Director of Powell Street Festival Society, and I'm mixed race, third generation Japanese Canadian. My maternal grandparents are English. In the early 20th century, they settled in rural Ontario, the territories of Mississauga, Ottawa, and Anishinaabewaki. My Japanese Jichan and Bachan ran restaurants on Alexander Street and Powell Street in the 1920s and 30s, prior to the first removal in 1942. My father was born in Greenwood during the internment, and I was born and raised in Vancouver. I feel deeply connected to this place, the unceded territories of the Tsleil-Waututh, Squamish, and Musqueam peoples. I'm grateful for their stewardship of this land and water and all its creatures. Through my work at Powell Street Festival, I've had the honor to learn from Indigenous and Japanese Canadian leaders and elders, and I'm discovering ways to be accountable as a settler colonizer. And through that process, I'm finding a resilience that redefines my own cultural identity and gives me tools to work in solidarity. The Paueru Gai Dialogues were conceived as a community building experience in the context of the pandemic. Through the guests' stories, the wide-ranging topics traced lines between basic human needs, food and shelter, clean water and air, mental health, and how our relationship to history, place, and other humans might set the course for a better, equitable future. The intention was to nudge ourselves outside of our comfort zone so we might experience the transformative power of being open, of hearing unexpected perspectives, of feeling safe and supported while working across difference. We asked everyone, including the audience, to work a little, to share a bit of yourselves. Thank you for that. There have been so many meaningful lessons in this year-long project, and we're really grateful to you for joining us on this journey. In addition to your contributions, the series was also possible thanks to the financial support from HAPA Collaborative, Canada Council for the Arts, BC Arts Council, City of Vancouver, SFU David Lamb Centre, individual donors, and in-kind support from the Bulletin Magazine and Element IQ. The format today provides much more time for everyone to hang out and talk, float solutions and inspirations, but we're still asking you to do some collaborative work. We've adapted the Doukana exercise into a collective haiku writing. I hope you have a pen and paper within reach. Also, a reminder, our priority is to hear from everyone in the breakout groups, and we've asked facilitators to keep the circle moving in order to meet this goal. We may interrupt you, and we ask for your forgiveness in advance. And while we are in the breakout groups, you're always free to decline the questions. Just ask for a pass. There's no judgment. So here's our agenda. A short video, 25-minute sharing circle in breakout groups. We regroup for an introduction to the collaborative haiku portion. The next breakout group is 40 minutes for a haiku writing exercise and discussion. When we reconvene, the facilitators will each share a haiku that has a call to action or includes a provocation, and then they'll also add the group's collected haiku into the chat box. Lastly, we'll do another haiku exercise that I think you'll find to be a huge relief and release, especially for those who experience writer's block, so do hang in there. After the formal program, we'll keep the portal open for folks to hang out and decompress. The Powell Street Festival team and film editor Titania Kalarko Higuchi have prepared a 10-minute video to highlight the themes that emerged during the series. As you watch the video, pay attention to what comes up for you. What emotions are you experiencing? What reactions do you feel in your body? Jot those down. Also take note of action words that resonate with you. Your notes will become a useful prompt when we move to the breakout groups. So now we'll watch the video. Bear with me while I set it up. Okay, we're off and running. Thank you for joining us today for the inaugural Paueru Gai Dialogues.
If I'm not open to the story of people, then I'm not being open to the possibilities of my survival and their survival.
Truth is often not told correctly, not told in its entirety, and not told from everyone's perspective.
And we really understand storytelling as witness. So our shared vulnerabilities being a strength that gives us mad perception, that drives our art making, our creation, and our connection forward. We also work with lived experience and trauma-informed frameworks. So we understand trauma not just as a psychiatric diagnosis, but as a response to injuries that are extremely common in our society, including the historical legacy and ongoing reality of colonization.
Really, the power of history and art and cultural practice is so important to our joy, but also at the core of resilience.
I decided that it was time, or I should attempt to resurrect that community in my songs, in my writing. And I want the Nisei to feel whole again, and I want the Sansei to feel in about their past.
I could briefly maybe say this is something that I face a lot with folks. And I like to say, start with what you love doing. Start with what gives you energy. You're no good to everybody else if you're exhausted and burnt out and all of that, right? And I think we're all born on this earth with different gifts to share.
Just as a bus jerked into movement again after a stop, I felt this gentle tug on my sleeve. And I opened my eyes and looked down to see an elderly Asian woman sitting in front of me. She caught my eye, and without speaking a word, she pointed to an empty seat behind me, nodding like she understood. I thanked her, and in doing so, I realized that she did not speak any English. And it's a rare occurrence to be truly seen and cared for by a stranger in public space in Toronto, even more so when there's a language barrier.
When I talk about our experience coming to a new land, our experience being cast out of our homes and province, our return, it is a secondhand story, retold so many times it becomes mythologized. And there's always so much left unsaid, so many stones left unturned. It's history that many of us have absorbed through books and photographs, songs and poetry, if we're lucky, through family stories. The willingness to finally tell our stories led to the 1977 Japanese-Canadian Centennial, which in turn gave rise to the first Paueru Street Festival. The success of that first festival opened the door another crack. As if roused from a long slumber by the sound of Japanese taiko and the glorious smells of home, Japanese Canadians returned to Paueru Street. They would return year after year.
When we're dealing with such serious subject matter, that there are moments of lightness and humor that we can, laugh over, shared food and breaking bread and like these kind of ceremony of gathering.
I immediately thought of the Nisei and how their attitudes and actions in rebuilding their post-war lives had achieved a level of acceptance and success that grants us, of succeeding generations, the luxury of making the choices in life that we do. If criticism is heaved our way about the manner in which JCs collectively adopted, dealt with, and shaped their place in society, our model minorityness, it comes with the territory, I think.
Through music, I joined the band Kokoho Rose in 1978. I met Rick and Sean, Linda and Joyce, my neighbors Take and Tamio. And just like that, I was part of something bigger than myself.
One of the goals that I have in a performance is to think about what would make my mother laugh.
The thing that came for me and continues to inform my work is that in terms of diaspora, particularly Black diaspora, that it's something that has to be made and remade.
The intergenerational knowledge that's passed and the craftsmanship to make the container for the fireworks themselves is so beautifully crafted. And then it goes up into the sky and then prismatically scatters in multiple colors in multiple directions. And I was thinking diaspora is sort of like fireworks because there's something that seems like it's the starting point. You can never recompile it into the singular thing, and the lights and the sounds and the smell go in multiple directions.
It's hard to give a land acknowledgement, because how do we acknowledge all of this theft, all of this violence, and all of this survival of people and of the land itself?
I started to see that this small encounter I had was actually reflective of a broader pattern in Japanese Canadian history and in the community more broadly. And that impulse was to possess, to reclaim, to repossess as a form of remembering what was lost. But questions kept creeping up. At what cost and at whose expense? What and who does the impulse to possess places like my family's farm and even places like Powell Street erase or obscure?
Food is a basic human right. Everyone deserves access and the ability to produce and distribute fresh, affordable, healthy, clean, sustainable, safe, and culturally appropriate foods.
If we could start thinking about things as not people's and not be so connected to saying that land is mine. How many people have bought into that illusion that they can own land in Canada? How many people do they continue to invite to this day to buy our corporations, to buy our lands, to expropriate our stuff? And I don't see First Nations people benefiting from it, and I don't see Black people or Asian people benefiting from it.
With or without you, this poll is going up. We asked them, what is the fear? What was that fear? And one said, well, it's an eyesore. I've never known, something so beautiful that was created by 9 women, homeless women, to, create this masterpiece. I was only the humble servant to assist these women. And to have somebody say that, well, that just cut like a knife right there. Because now we are brown women. And those doors shut on us. But how it shifted is when the elders came in.
Now is the time for Japanese Canadians and Asian settlers on this continent to think about our responsibilities and how we can take action. And I've come to see in my life that quite often the more money we have, the less generous we are with sharing it. I want to ask how we can collectively encourage each other to do better. If we own property, how can we develop new ways of thinking about our relationship to land? How can we restore Indigenous sovereignty to lands we occupy? I dream of a world where we all work to establish better relationships of deep consent for our bodies, for our communities, for the plant and animal beings, for our ancestral spirits, and for the waterways and lands we live on. It involves deep listening. It involves taking up less space. It involves finding wealth in our ability to give up power, resources, and land. And perhaps most of all, it involves remembering how to restore the flow of love and care in order to create a world where we don't leave anyone behind. That our worth will be based not on what we produce or own, but on the very fact that our existence is sacred.
Hello. Okay, that was the video. The next step is that the Powell Street team is going to put everybody into breakout groups. It's an opportunity for you to share your experiences and your takeaways. What resonated with you? And do you have inklings of next steps, impulses to move forward on a project, or change a habit. Rita Wong said, start with what you love. And Ayumi Goto always asks, what will make my mother laugh? So in the breakout groups, have some fun, share some love. We'll see you back here at 1:45. So, haiku. They're a traditional Japanese poetic form, and it starts with a 5-syllable line. The second line is 7 syllables. And the third line is 5 syllables. Probably you remember this. You may have encountered this in elementary school. So traditionally, haiku writing is a collective activity. It's written swiftly, using concrete words, and often they have a seasonal reference. Haiku record a concrete experience, a personal observation. They often have a pivot word or a turning point that introduces an insight or a shock of awareness. So we're going to head straight back into the breakout rooms where the facilitators will share some resources and prompts to get you started. And when you return, we'll be hearing your Inklings to Action haiku, a collaboratively selected offering that includes a call to action or provocation. We're also going to be putting all of the offerings in the chat. So take a bio break and then join your group. If you don't have one already, grab a pencil or pen and paper. And we are going to come back here at 2:30. All right, welcome back. We're going to have, we're going to do some sharing now. So a facilitator will share one haiku and then paste the rest in the chat box. And I leave it to our team to make the magic happen.
Lovely. So this was the haiku written by Caleb and inspired by Vivian. Growing weeds and shoots, what origin seeds to plant? Building together.
That's awesome. We didn't pick one. Are we in trouble? We picked 3. I'll say them quickly. I hope it's okay. So one of them was from Sue. It was questions in the void, like fallen monuments reveal, witness and rebirth. And then this one's mine. The ground remembers, more than Powell, more than me, it calls for justice. And then the last one's Eddie's, Taiko Beat echoes, community for justice, meeting in the park. And I will throw those in the chat, all of them actually.
Great. Thank you. And now we're going to have the bank of haiku in the chat and take some time to write more. Basically, this is the fun part. Take lines from other people's haiku and mash them up and make new haiku and post those in the chat. So we'll start to riff off one another's thoughts and ideas, and then you'll see the method and the madness and a little presence of the Doukana, generative thinking. So have some fun. I think we will take I don't know, maybe 15 minutes or so to do this. And then it would be nice to, before everyone leaves, just have a bit of sharing. And I'd love to hear what the experience was like for people. The ground remembers more than Powell, more than me. It calls for justice. Taiko Beat echoes, community for justice, meeting in the park. shift the abundance, exuberant abundance, hidden undergrowth. Meeting in the park, shake loose the hesitation, jump up to the sun. And many, many more. And people are still writing, which is great. So one of the reasons why we arranged this workshop is because we would often get feedback and expressions of frustration for the rigidity of the format, right? We have go into breakout groups and do this Doukana exercise, and you don't have time to talk about solutions or next steps and so on. And so we wanted to create an opportunity to bring people together and reflect on the experience and share any discoveries that you might have had. And maybe you were actually motivated to start a new project or change a habit, or maybe you actually are expecting Powell Street Festival to do something. This is your opportunity to reflect and share and probably hear all the reasons why we wouldn't facilitate something, but turn things around and ask you, well, what is there in your daily life that might shift from this experience? It is after 3. We're going to keep this open and continue to talk, but I should formally thank everybody for participating in this workshop, and also for all your contributions throughout the year. It really has been a remarkable kind of learning experience on so many different levels.